Hello and welcome to a brand new series at the American Adventure theme park. Before we begin our full explore of the site, I want to give you a brief history of the park. If you would like an in-depth history, you can check out the fantastic Expedition Theme Park video linked in the description below. It all began back in 1847 when the grounds of Shipley Hall became known as Woodside Colliery. It was a deep level mine with railway sidings and a railway branch line known as the Heanor branch. It was later converted to an open cast mine until it closed in 1966. When the mining had ceased, the land was turned back into a nature park for leisure use. They lined the land with clay and flooded it to create a large lake known as Shipley Lake in 1976. A firm called KLF, led by Peter Kellard, proposed to use the former mining site, including the lake, and turn it into a theme park. Celebrating all things British, it would be like a permanent exhibition known as Britannia Park. The site was taken on a 100-year lease, and work soon began for a 1985 opening. However, the park was nowhere near finished and lacked any of the attractions promised on opening day. The crowds expected did not materialise, and one customer was quoted as saying, "You can do what's worth doing in less than an hour."
How confident are you that this is going to be a success?
Not the slightest doubt.
Has the thought of failure even entered your head?
No.
Not surprisingly, just 10 weeks after opening, the park had closed its gates, gone bankrupt, and called the receivers in. There's a lot more to this story, including legal battles and even a prison sentence, but we'll save that for another day. The park was purchased by the County Council for £2.5 million in 1986 and quickly leased to one John Rigby of Park Hall Leisure. John Rigby, you may remember, was also the creator behind Camelot theme park that we've already covered on the channel. John joined forces with Granada TV to lease the park and open it as the American Adventure. John was eventually bought out fully by Granada plc, and it was operated alongside Camelot theme park and Granada Studios. John and his business partner lived on site during the construction phase, with a 70-strong workforce, all from the local area. John Rigby said a lot of them had worked in mines and were looking for work. They had incredible skills such as welding and making stuff, and that was important. Manufacturers in Europe were tasked with matching the rides to the theme. John said the big wheel was chuck wagons. Some of the manufacturers still make those models today based on our original instructions, like the big wheel and the roller coaster shaped like a buffalo. The park opened to much fanfare in 1987 as Britain's first real theme park. It was truly themed: the rides, the shops, the costumes, and even the bins. Chessington is often stated as the first proper theme park, but this opened just before Chessington, and the whole park was themed, not just a small area. And you could even argue that Camelot theme park was before both of them. With heavily themed areas utilising most of the lake area, the former Britannia Park infrastructure being covered over and converted to all things American. The park was split into two, with the Native Americans occupying one side, and the cowboys doing their thing in the other. It opened with a strong lineup of rides in its first few years of operation, with favourites such as the Runaway Mine Train, Log Flume, Buffalo Coaster, River Rapids, and Europe's largest indoor play area, the Pioneer Playland. The miniature railway was also extended to do a full loop of the lake. John Rigby said most of the rides were built by local guys who had made trains for the mines in Nottingham. They were just as good as you could buy from the big manufacturers around the world. These guys became Big Country Motioneering, who also built the Ultimate at Lightwater Valley. One thing the park heavily focused on besides the rides was major character stunt shows. They were like nothing else in the UK at the time, apart from their other shows at Camelot. The park peaked in attendance in the early 90s, when the missile roller coaster was opened the year previously in 1989 by the astronaut Buzz Aldrin. And in 1993, the park's current double drop log flume was converted into 3 drops, with the third being the highest in the UK and known as Nightmare Niagara. The final major attraction to open was the former Super Looper roller coaster from Lightwater Valley in 1995. Now called the Iron Wolf and themed around the Granada-owned Gladiators TV show. The park was sold by Granada in 1997 to Venture World, which was headed by John Broome, the former developer of Alton Towers and the failed scheme at Battersea Power Station. He proposed to invest millions into the park and make it a world-class attraction once again, losing the American theme and instead having the park themed to different countries around the world, expanding into land that they owned but had not yet utilised, and adding a number of major attractions to compete with other major theme parks. A major CC wooden roller coaster was planned for the empty site next to the runaway mine train and log flume. The missile roller coaster would be relocated to a new area called Oktoberfest, and a large B&M suspended roller coaster in a new area called Chinatown. Plans also included a hotel and a Centre Parks style holiday village on unused land at the back of the park. John disliked the park being on 2 levels and instead would build a new entrance plaza to the east of Alamo, and the old top portion of the park would become a village shopping outlet as a separate attraction to the park. But apart from drawing up plans, adding the Flying Island and upcharged Sky Coaster, moving the entrance and changing the name to Adventure World, nothing much else happened, due to the local council stating that they would not support any major developments at the park, nor would they allow them to expand. This also seemed to be corroborated by rumoured interest in the site over the years by 6 Flags. They all stated that the council would not allow them to develop the park to its potential. This was said to be the reason the project never happened, and why John Broome left, and why the owners decided to sell the park. The park was sold once again in 1999, after reverting back to the previous name of American Adventure. This time it was sold to the THG Group, who also owned Pontins and most of the attractions in Blackpool. Unfortunately, by this time the park was starting to look tired and unloved. Attractions disappeared and no other attractions were added between 1999 and 2006. They simply ran the park on a shoestring budget with no investment and hoped that people would still come. Their luck eventually ran out in 2005 when attendances were at their lowest ever figures. Rides such as the Missile, Nightmare Niagara and the Rapids were in desperate need of some money and upgrades. Instead, they decided to close all 3 attractions and refocus their sights on the children's market. This was the final nail in the coffin. Even some new kids attractions on loan failed to pull in many visitors. By the end of 2006, the park looked void of rides, unloved, and staff members outnumbered the guests. My final visit was this year, and I predicted at the time that it would not see a 2007 season. I was right. The park closed, sold its assets, terminated the lease, and was handed back to the local council. Shortly after, the land was cleared very swiftly, at the taxpayers' expense. The council really didn't like the idea of a theme park at that location anymore, and neither did the locals. The land was sold to a developer in 2019, who proposed to turn it into a nature park with residential properties, a nursing home, hotel and garden centre known as Shipley Lakeside. The developer proposed naming the streets after areas and rides in the park, but the local council refused and instead opted for bland and non-park related names. At present, the site is still not fully developed and traces of the park still remain. So let's go and see what's left and relive some nostalgic memories. Well, as you can see, we're here at the American Adventure, or what was the American Adventure. I mean, look at it now. Doesn't look anything like it used to. Right behind me you would have had the Sky Coaster, the twin looper, missile, all the big attractions that we all remember. Now all I see is grass and water. So let's go and explore the site and find out what we can see remaining and try a picture where things were originally. We're currently stood outside what was the main entrance on the top level of the theme park. And in later years, it was moved round the side. But this was the original entrance in the 80s for Britannia Park and the American Adventure. And right behind me is one of the smaller car parks, which was directly opposite the main entrance. And again, you had another car park round the side entrance down there, which was much bigger. But as you can see, still a lot remaining of that car park. Even the spaces are still marked out. So we'll just go have a wander around here. But they're currently using it for storing piles of rubble for the new houses that they're building further down. You can see the spots are still marked out on the car park there. I do remember parking in here in the early 90s, probably 1990. And then the second half of the car park is somewhat more overgrown than the other side. I think they've been using the other one, the contractors, the house build, because this one is a lot more neglected. As you can see, all the trees have shot up. You can still see the little islands in the middle with the curbs around, where they used to have landscaping. Now all overgrown. But I keep having a look through these little rubble piles that we see everywhere, just to see if there's anything that may have American Adventure on it or may resemble something that's been taken out, because all this will probably be from the site somewhere. I also remember the little pathway that used to run through these trees down the centre of the car park to the main entrance, which was through there. But by God, it's windy today. So let's head over there and have a look at where the entrance used to be. Where I'm stood now was the main entrance to the park in the early years anyway. It closed sometime in the late 90s, I think, like 98, 99. And they passed it off as they had to close this entrance because of subsidence and it wasn't safe to use, and they wanted to palm you off on the little porter cabin temporary one round the side, which was awful. However, I have learned since then that that wasn't probably true. There was no subsidence here. Instead, they just wanted you to use the side entrance because John Broome at the time, who was running the park in that year, didn't like the park being on two levels, so he just closed this off because it wasn't needed. That's the rumour anyway. Yeah, it was right there, big brick building with the big entrance sign, ticket booths, and a little courtyard in front with some shops and little restaurants and things. And also the singing bears, you remember those in the little shed in the middle? And that was all right here. And there's still a pile of rubble here, probably leftovers from that building. So you'd come out of the car park opposite and head straight through there. We've just made our way up the hill from where the main entrance was there and the car park on the right. So the new entrance, you would have driven up here, down the hill and round the back. That was the side entrance down there, and the other car park is just over there. But look at the view today. All these brand new houses now on what was the staff car park at the back here, and also some empty units that were never used, that I remember anyway. And then you had the big arena just down the hill on the other side. We'll check that out later on. And then a look across where the former entrance area was. So the building was here, right in the middle, big courtyard, and then you headed out and down the hill into the park. And again, up here, it was all bits of units and things like that, and a lot of staff areas. But it's all flat now and on a slightly different level. All this has been padded out with rubble, so I'm going to guess all the buildings that were demolished are underneath that. We're heading away now from the main entrance and down this new access road, which is brand new obviously, and into what was the theme park. So I'm looking forward to this because I haven't been here since 2006, which was its last year of operation. So it's going to be pretty weird for me to see it as it is now without anything inside. And also pretty sad, to be honest. Now it's worth mentioning, it's 16 years since the park closed in 2007. Now the park was only open for 19 years, so it's nearly been closed as long as it was open. Now it's really hard to describe where we are because it looks completely different. They've totally altered the topography of the land. But the main entrance building is at the top of here, and you would have come down some stairs at an angle. There's a little lake and a bridge, and then you made your way down and across another bridge. You can still see the colliery building there, which has always been there, right back from when it used to be the colliery on this whole site here. I think it was called Woodside Colliery, and that was before, long before the American Adventure. This seems so strange seeing this now, but right about this level was the Aztec Kingdom, I think it was called. Or I remember it as the Pioneer Playland. The big building with the faces on it, if you don't know what I'm talking about. And that was right there in front of us. So this is taken from roughly around here, facing the Pioneer Playland building, what was then the Motion Master Theatre, which was a simulator ride. And I also remember it being aliens in there in the 90s when I went on it. That was right here on a slightly higher level than what it is today. It's just so weird to see this. So I'm going to show you with my phone the level that the building would have been at, probably about here. So we would have been stood on there with the building overlooking the lake. But if we do head down here, all this land that's been built up is made up of bricks, rocks, concrete, you name it. It's definitely all the rubbish from the area. When they've cleared the American Adventure site, they've just smashed it all to pieces into foundation rubble and used it. You can see red brick here. A lot of the buildings in this park had red bricks, especially the entrance building as well. And you can see it all down here, even in this bit. But I believe this is going to be a pub and a hotel in the future. It's a plot of land marked up for that anyway, but yeah, today it's just a flat piece of ground. It's just so weird to see. Again, more red bricks up there, look. All this is definitely demolition rubble. So the park still lives on in some way, buried within the foundations of all the buildings in the area. This is so weird seeing this. It's absolutely gutting, it really is. Walking around and knowing what was here and how much potential this place had, it really did. They just didn't utilise it and they didn't see it. Greedy owners, I think, at the time. Now, one thing that hasn't changed is this level right here. This is the level behind the old Fisherman's Wharf area and just on the hillside, and it featured the New Orleans Mall, if you remember that, behind. Not a lot of people remember it because it was well hidden away. I'm going to fade that picture in and show you what was here looking this way now. I do remember heading inside there. Lots of little quirky shops. Now, who remembers Snake Island? Well, it was right there in front of us. So you got the lake edge down here, and then you had the little bridge across to Snake Island. And then you had the flying island on Snake Island, if you remember that, the octopus and the Helter Skelter as well. But the flying island was only here for 2 years, probably I think 98, 99. I did go on it as well. And it was a really good ride actually. It was always breaking down, but you got some great views off it. So hopefully you can see that on this picture now. I've faded it in. But you can see the bridge that used to link to the island and then the flying island on there. And if we come back out, what they've done today is they've cut off the lakeside path that used to walk round and the bridge. They've filled it all in with land to bridge the gap across to the island now, and the island is now part of the new build, really. So they're going to build houses on the plateau, I think. Well, here we are on Snake Island, or what's left of it. Not anymore. It's been built up and it's been filled in quite a bit on the corners. But you can just see, if you look out there, the pipes for the old fountain that used to be in the middle of the lake. They're still there. Obviously they're not going to go anywhere. Yeah, this is what's left of Snake Island. So it will be here underneath, just they've kind of buried it now. Now, do you remember the flying island that was here, like I said over there earlier on? You got some great views around the park from about 160 feet in the air. So I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take the drone up now, about 160 foot at this spot, which is roughly where it would have been, and see what view we get now compared to what you used to get. We just sent the drone up on the exact spot from Snake Island, and we sent it the exact height of 165 feet, which is what the flying island did, so you can get the exact view that you would have got from there. Well, there you go. How much it's changed, eh? Well, thank you very much for joining us here at American Adventure. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one.